Welcome back to The Truth in This Art. I am your host, Rob Lee. Thank you for tuning into my conversations at the intersection of arts, culture, and community. Today, I have a special guest for a special conversation. As you may know, July is Culinary Arts Month, and it is no secret that I love food. I love chatting about food. I love getting into culinary and gastronomical nerdery. So my guest today is the owner and chef of several different restaurant concepts in the greater Baltimore area, including Bunny's, Sally O's, and The Dive. Please welcome chef and restaurateur, Jesse Sandlin. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for coming on. And, you know, it's one of those things. And whenever I have on folks who I've had their food, I mark out a little bit. I'm definitely a food nerd. I have some strong food opinions. So it's a privilege to have you here.
Well, thank you so much. I love to hear it. That's awesome.
And before we get into like the deeper questions, what have you, the ones that's those multiple layers down, I want to give you the space and opportunity to introduce yourself. And I think a lot of times it's super important to hear it in our own words. You know, we get those online bios, those marketing materials, and it's like, I don't even look like that anymore. And that's not even the story. So if you will, could you tell us a bit about yourself and give us your background, sort of the elevator pitch, if you will?
Sure. Well, my name is Jesse Sandlin, and I am a Baltimore native, grew up throughout Baltimore, did a lot of moving around as a kid, but settled in high school in Bernie, moved to California when I was younger, and then cooked in Australia for a little while. Before I came back to Baltimore, probably about 20 years ago now. Worked for Cindy Wolf and Tony Foreman for a number of years, and then got the opportunity to be the executive chef of a place called Abercrombie, which is long gone now, but over by the Meyerhoff Symphony Hall, and, you know, kind of took it from there at different places around town. Opened up my first restaurant on my own in July of 2020, Sally O's. And then we opened up The Dive 2 years later, and that's over in Canton. And then just last year in actually almost exactly a year ago, it was June 14th of 2023, we opened up Bunny's Buckets and Bubbles, which is in Fells Point. So that's where we're at now.
That's great. And the cool thing about it, right, is as if you've been on a podcast before, you kind of tease what we're going to be diving a bit further into later.
I've never been on a well, I have my friend has a podcast, and I did an episode with him during the pandemic, actually, if I remember the timing correctly, but I do listen to a lot of podcasts. So
all right, you get it. You understand what we're doing here. And here's the thing. You know, folks will say like, man, I said too much. Or I was like, no, you're making my job easier. It's less about me talking, more about you. So I think food has a lot of emotion, a lot of connection. And this is sort of part of my offerings for, we're recording this in June, but releasing it in July as part of my offerings for Culinary Arts Month. So I think with the emotion and with the sort of connection that folks have, and you kind of took us a little bit through that journey. Could you go back a bit and share one of your favorite early food memories?
Let's see. When I was a latchkey kid, so I did a lot of cooking dinner, like for myself or for my parents. You know, I'd come home from school, do some chores, do some homework, and throw, you know, like make steakums or like, you know, peppers and onions or something. But one of my favorite things, and it still has this like nostalgicness to it, is just like a really simple roasted chicken, because that's one of the things when I was a kid that was we probably ate 2 chickens a week, just because it was, you know, you kind of rub it with some oil and salt and pepper and throw whatever weird dried herbs are in the spice cabinet and throw it in the oven and let it go for half hour. You know, I mean, I was probably cooking it for an hour at that time because, you know, what did I know? Just throw it in the oven until you can rip the bone out of the leg. But that I think in general, just kind of roast chicken has this real nostalgia for me, because of, that was like one of the first things that I ever really made, um, that I felt like I could, you play around with different spices and herbs and things. And, it was a little bit of experimentation and, kind of discovery, when I was a kid.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
I've talked about this a lot. This is much more low rent than roasting the chicken, but I would think about my mom. It's not really food, but it is one of those things when my brother and I, we would get out of school and we'd get home, and it was kind of that 1 hour period between my mom just left, we just missed her, and my dad is on his way home. So we're just kind of there, like
Hmm.
figuring it out. And she would always have like a handwritten note, tell how much she cared about us, how much she loved us, and all of that good stuff. And it would be like the wild hug juices and like Star Crunch, like, one of those, like
Oh my
the
God, I
little
love a
Debbie
Star
Sims.
Crunch.
Yeah.
I haven't even thought about a Star Crunch in so many years. That's amazing.
And I remember those things, and that's where the sort of a emotion thing, the family connection, right? Where
Yeah.
you think about those things, and I'm always trying to recreate stuff from an era, but do it with, I guess, sort of responsibility, I suppose. Where like I'm 39, I'm gonna be 40 beginning of next year, and it's coming, and one of the things I really liked growing up, and they stopped making them, and I see Reddits out there that they don't exist anymore, and I'm like, look, where's the recipe? I know it's a recipe out there. The friggin' like Ninja Turtle pies. It's always something. Always something.
Yeah, those are great. Do you know what I was thinking of the other day? And I don't know when they went away, and I think it was almost like this is ridiculous, but it feels to me like a very underground kind of in the know thing, because I'll say this and you may or may not know. A lot of people don't know what they were, but did you ever have screaming yellow zonkers?
I remember those.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to them. I haven't seen them in years, but the other day, I guess maybe I was in like the popcorn aisle in the grocery store or something, and I was like, "Holy shit, where are the screaming yellow zonkers? Why haven't I had them in so long?" And who knows what happened to them? But that's another one of those, like, man, those were so good, and now they're just gone forever.
I mean, once upon a time, before I move into this next question, once upon a time, I did a different podcast. I've been podcasting for 15 years. And I did one that was like pop culture oriented. And whenever the new, and it's not food, it's not food. Let's just call it what it is. It's not food. These sort of like junk items would come out. But I'm like, I appreciate the creativity. So whenever Lay's came out with their new flavors during the summer, or I just remember it was probably 2016, maybe, when the first iteration of the coffee nut M&Ms came out, and I was like, look, we're just going to do a fast food and snack podcast. We're just going to review the with no video. It's just going to be the sound of us chewing. It's not going to be good for anyone listening.
I love that though. That's so fun.
So, and thank you. So, moving into this next question, you touched on it a bit as far as the some of the different touch points within your food journey. So, how did you get into food? Like we've had those things. You mentioned being a latchkey kid and just kind of like figuring it out early on, and that making the chicken and doing all these different things, and but pursuing it as a vocation, pursuing it as a calling, and even down this journey, I see like Top Chef. I see you touched on, Australia. You touched on, some of the, biggest names here in the city and different kitchens that you've worked in, and now being a restaurateur and like sort of this era that's been very, very challenging, and then seeing one, your food shine through, your restaurant shine through, and the personality shine through in those restaurants. So let's talk about the journey. Like, what was going backwards? What was that sort of? Yeah, this is what I'm going to do. What was that for you?
I mean, I think it was something that I kind of thought about, like when I was in high school. You're like, all right, I'm going to go to college. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do whatever. But back then, I'm 45, so I graduated high school in '96, and back then it wasn't like it is now, where being a chef was like a real legitimate occupation that you would think about. it was like, oh, well, how do you turn that into a career? How do you turn that into a job? Like, I didn't think about it as something I could do for the rest of my life. It was just something that I enjoyed. And I worked at a little hot dog place in Glen Burnie called Ann's Dairy Cream that's still there. They do footlong hot dogs and, soft serve ice cream and cheesesteak subs, and it's amazing. But that was kind of the extent of my, I don't know, professional kitchen knowledge. So when I moved to California, I did a bunch of, I taught elementary school for a little while, which is what I thought I wanted to do until I realized that I don't necessarily like children all that much, for whatever it's worth. And I had a roommate. Her name's Linda. Still a very good friend of mine today. And she was a sous chef at a restaurant. And she knew that I'd had a little bit of experience. She called me one night and she said, the person who makes salads, the pantry cook, called out, can you just come and fill in for tonight? And just, salads and desserts, it's really easy, to help me out. And I said, yeah, sure, absolutely. And that was kind of the beginning of the end, so to speak. I started working there in the evenings part-time, and I had an office job during the day, and then wound up leaving that office job and found another job in a kitchen during the day, and just did it from there. And then now something like 30 years later, I am where I am. So
thank you.
Yeah.
So is there an experience or a period that, in being in the different kitchens and having those different experiences that kind of shape how you approach whether from the in the kitchen side of things, the business side of things, the sort of like overall, being a restaurateur, being a chef? Is there an example that comes out that you think of like, yeah, this was that moment, this was something that really helped shape who I am in the kitchen and who I am as a business person?
I mean, I think there's been a lot of those moments. I've been fortunate enough to work for some really amazing people, and I a lot of my, I don't know, like early kind of ethos, I guess, about food came from chefs that I worked for in California, and this kind of getting into like the slow food movement of we use local products, we use artisanal stuff, we use high quality ingredients, and that kind of continued when I came to work for the Foreman Wolf Group. When I was at Pazzo as a sous chef there, Tony Foreman and I would get up and we'd go to the farmers market under the JFX every Sunday morning at like 6 a.m., and we'd buy a bunch of stuff for all the restaurants. And I met all these farmers, and, working for them really taught me an incredible amount about managing people and, just kind of learning how to manage yourself and things like that. And, so I've had a lot of those kind of, I don't know, defining moments, I guess. It's hard to really like nail one or two down because there's just been so many, honestly.
No, it's great to have so many to look back at. Like, I run into that as well in doing this. This is, has taken up, doing this podcast has been a third of sort of my quote unquote podcast journey. Right. And,
yeah,
folks ask me like, what's your favorite interview? What's the interview that sticks out? And I'm like, why are you asking me questions?
yeah, right. Like, I don't know, all of them.
But then it's literally, that is really the answer. But then it's 800 interviews, and
Yeah.
I was coming up on 800 at least. And some folks I've talked to a few different times, and, me, I'm always appreciative of the conversation. You go out there and, Baltimore, you were touching on sort of going to that farmer's market, and you kind of having those, those early connections with folks like, oh, this is this farmer, this is how this person operates, and this is what this person does, and being able to have like a conversation with them, and then that maybe flourishes into something that is maybe a relationship between the farmer, the producer, and the restaurant, or so on. And I have that on occasion in doing this. Like I try to be neutral, try to have just interesting conversations. I don't really have an agenda other than let's have the conversation if you're interested.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's funny, like in going through, you're the third of these interviews that I've done with chefs. And it's funny in talking with some of the ones that are out there, like Chef Zach from True Chesapeake, what have you. It's always like, appreciate you coming through, buddy. And it's just like he pops over, has a conversation, and it's just like, oh yeah, we have an established connection here, and
Yeah,
those are
yeah.
the things that matter, I think.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, especially like, I'll say the food restaurant industry in Baltimore is small, and a lot of the chefs know each other and support each other, and it's always nice to just like, feel like you have that community and that support, and in within the city and within your small little like kind of restaurant world, I guess you
Yeah.
could say.
Oh yeah. And definitely I brag about. I'm like, look, man, you got to go there. You got to try to catfish. And it's like, if you go on the bunnies, you got to look. It's not even. Here's the thing, and we're going to. This is the next question, actually. Here's the thing, like, I'm not a huge fried chicken person, right? And my partner is not a meat eater. We both had
Oh.
fried chicken at your spot, though. That's the thing. She doesn't eat meat regularly. She's like, and I'm like, I'll have the biscuits and I'll have some of these deviled eggs and something strong alcoholic wise. And that was literally my order. And I was like, and this was like the first time we went there. And, it was her kids that really kind of gassed it up. And it's like, you guys got to go to Bunny's. I don't know what you're doing. It's fried chicken and it's like bubbly, like bubbles. Like, what are you doing? Like, and when the idea and the notion was presented to us, me and her, we both looked at each other and we like when these like, Reese's cup sort of situations come together. So if you will, tell us about sort of Bunnies and where did the like idea and the sort of concept come together of like fried chicken and the bubbly, if you will.
Well, I mean, there's a couple of different reasons. One of them being they're my fried chicken and champagne are my two favorite things in the world.
You get it?
um, for my 30th and my 40th birthday, we had a fried chicken and champagne party. So it's long been a theme of my life. But there's also my two main business partners, Brian and Matt, who are my partners in all of the restaurants. And then we also have Peter, who's my partner at the Dive as well. But we all really love this restaurant in South Carolina called Leon's. And they do fried chicken, they do oysters, and they have a pretty extensive bubbles and champagne list as well. And so after Sally O's, Matt got married down in South Carolina, and we were kind of sitting down there, and I texted Brian and I said, the next restaurant that we do, like, I want to do fried chicken and champagne. We're going to call it Funnies. It's going to be super fun. Like, this whole idea. And then it just kind of snowballed from there. Matt found the wharf rat when it went up for auction. Brian and I went and looked at it. We said, this is crazy. This building is, 1,000 years old. It's going to be so much. And, Matt was like, oh, but it's so cool. And, we did the tour of it and we're like, all right, yeah, this is pretty fucking cool. This is a great building. and so it just kind of, blossomed from there and became what it is now.
It's great, and I do this thing where I really think of this. I keep a notepad with me and all of this stuff. I'm one of those guys. Like, I'm very serious about the places that I like, and I'm an evangelist for the place. Like, I've gotten the title from family and friends who are out of towners, and it was like, you're the culture guy. Where do I go? And I do all of the things. I go from the branding. I go from, and it's usually not even just like, oh, they make really good food. Like, sure, that's a default for me, but it's branding, identity, all of those different items. Like, there's the colors, there's the logo, all of those things that are there because I want that memory there, with that the connection to be there. So each one of the locations mentioned, the Dive, Sally O's, and Bunnies, they all have a distinct thing and it's a certain vibe attached, and it's very successful in kind of building that out. And I think it's beloved. Could you speak a bit on like having a successful concept, like what goes into that?
I think part of it is like, there's got to be, I'm a big believer in kind of staying as true to concept as you can, you know what I mean? Because I think that people have an idea of what they want and what they expect. And, if you go too far away from that, it gets muddy, right? So with Salio's, the concept is kind of so much looser. It was like this is my first restaurant. I'm just going to do like whatever I want kind of a thing, so which is why the menu is like all over the place um, and very eclectic. And I mean, the decor as well. It's like Salio's was kind of modeled after like my living room, it's like, this is just going to be a really comfortable space. We want it to be neighborhood friendly, but we also want you to be able to like, feel as if you could come here and bring a date and wear a suit and tie, or you could come and just sit at the bar and eat a smash burger and in your sweats and drink a natty boh, and you're fine. It's all welcome either way. But like the other places were kind of just these just random ideas that the bunnies, like I wanted it to feel like almost like a modern diner. It just seemed like it would go with like the idea of bubbles and fun and the fried chicken, and we could do a lot with that, and just creating a space that was kind of unique to Baltimore in general was also like a thought with that as well. And like trying to just be different, but not like gimmicky, if that makes sense, because it you want it to feel like something that will stand the test of time, and that's not going to be just a fad that's happening right now, so I think that's kind of part of like the thought process of building out a brand and thinking in terms of like longevity. And I had a friend of mine who helped me build the Salio's website and did a lot of work with me on the branding for Salio's in general. He owns a graphic design company and marketing firm called Proper. And he one day was like, all right, well, if your brand was a celebrity, like who would it be? And that is something I kind of always think of now is like, if Salio's was a celebrity, what would that person be like? Why does that appeal? And, thinking in terms of things like that has been a lot of fun with thinking about branding as well.
It's wonderful. And even thinking about the locations, like, there are places I've gone to in and around Baltimore and other places where I'll travel to that, they sometimes they don't fit. It's like, this is great, as a place, but I don't know if it fits in this particular location for sake of argument.
Mm-hmm.
And I can speak, very intently, because it's most recently I've gone to Salio's and to Bunny's, that both of them feel specifically like they should have been there for a very long time. Not like, you said 2020 and like, literally a year later. So within the last like 3 to 4 years, they both feel like they've been there for forever as far as what they are at this moment. And I think with like Salio's specifically, that it's in an arts district, so it has sort of that vibe. It's a little grit there, but then you can see a little bit of everyone there. I've probably gone to Salio's the most. I think I've been to Bunny's maybe 3 times, but Salio's the most. And it's definitely, oh, what's over here? Oh yeah, let's go to Salio's. It's literally that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I live in Highlandtown, so it was easy, I think, in a way to make it feel like part of the neighborhood, because I am part of the neighborhood, so it was just kind of like I said, creating like this extension of my home in a lot of ways, and really wanting it to feel like it fit in with the neighborhood, and that the neighbors could come and really feel like it was still their place, because it had been the laughing point for, gosh, I think it was like 13 years or something. And it was such a beloved space. But I wanted to make it, I still wanted to have that kind of vibe and feel to it, but I also needed to make it mine and something completely different so that people wouldn't constantly compare, you know what I mean? And I think we kind of had that same feeling about, the Wharf Rat. Is it was, I'd been there for so long. It was such a beloved space. People, really missed it when it closed. And we wanted to pay some homage to the past. And there were aspects that we were going to keep, but honestly, once we kind of got into the demolition and found the the immense structural issues that we had at that space, it was like, all right, well, we're just going to blow it up and, create something totally new. So it feels good to hear that it still feels like it belongs in that area. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. And yeah, and I think one of the things you touched on a moment ago there, I think is really, really key and really important. When I go around the city, I'm looking at different places. I got my eyes open, what's new, what's soon. And I am a snob when it comes to like New Orleans food, Southern food, something like that. And I'm always looking for that. And I'm looking for Puerto Rican food. I'm looking for these different things. And and then I'm also, because of doing these interviews and being able to zigzag and cross conversations, you hear things, you listen to people, and you kind of hear like what's missing, what folks would want, and that community thing, feeling like something's a part of the community. And I'll add this dynamic to it, this piece to it. When I go to a place and see that a place is closed, right, and it's definitely a beloved place or a place that's like, damn, I remember having some good meals there, good times there. And my initial thought is, it's like, I hope they don't put something crappy there. I hope they replace it with something cool, or I hope they don't turn it into a loft. And then I see different sort of areas that maybe you have an arts district, or maybe have like a fair amount of foot traffic, and it's it's almost like the neighbors that are in these places aren't talking to each other to, hey, if you're over here in this arts district and we have this really cool restaurant, maybe you should go there. But I saw
Yeah.
a bit of that difference thing there when it comes to Hollandtown, and specifically with like Beth Ann, right? She's like, oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's Salio's, you gotta go there. And that's literally, I'm at a gallery doing something completely different, and it's like, go to Salio's. And I think that should happen more often, because literally is a long-winded way of saying it. We're all neighbors.
100%. Yeah. I mean, and I think, in this day and age, and, you as small business owners and, artists, creatives, whatever you want to call it, like, we all need to support each other as in any way we can. And, I think that word of mouth is one of the best ways of doing that. I was so sad when Beth Ann moved up to the Royal Blue. I mean, it's so great for her because that space is amazing, but just having her across the street, like on First Fridays, you look over and Beth Ann and Sean are outside, like having a little party, and, you stop by and say hi. And it just was, really a nice, it was just a good time. And not that it's not now with, Crystal Mall, the woman who moved in over there, she's lovely, but it just, it was just a different vibe. And I miss her. I miss her a lot. She's awesome.
Yeah, I think and Beth Ann's great. She's always supported everything I've done with this.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I think like, you know, having that idea of more of that, as far as having these sort of connections. Hey, we're literally neighbors. Like, how do we
Yeah.
make these things kind of work, that we're all supporting each other and, our goals and the overall sort of health, economically, creatively, what have you, of the communities that our small businesses are in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I got like two, well, actually three menu related questions. These are speaking in generalities, but I want to start off with this first one, and it almost covers similar territory, but I want to get your take as a person that's also a consumer, not just the business side of it and the chef side of it. It's like also you're a person that eats food. I eat food. What are your sort of core beliefs, philosophies when it comes to creating and enjoying like food, enjoying a good meal?
I am very like, I don't know if impetuous is the word, but I get really like, I want a specific thing right now, and that's what I want, So like, if I'm gonna go out to eat, it'll be like, all right, I want pasta tonight, where I'm gonna go here, or like I get that kind of like real strong cravings, and then I have to go, to satisfy that. But as far as like building a menu, I think I'm a person. I've been I've long had kitchens that are limited, in some capacity by like size or equipment or what have you. So whenever I think about menu creation, I tend to think really strongly about the execution of the dish and how we're going to produce it. And are we going to be able to produce it consistently and out of this kitchen? Like, if you've got at Salio's, we have a 6-burner stove. I can't do a dish that is a 4-pan pickup because I've only got 6 burners. You know what I mean? So there's things to think about like with that. But as far as like choosing where to eat, I think it's certainly, for me at least, based predominantly on like what I want in that moment.
So I want to ask you this question as far as like anchors, right? Is is there, like, when you're thinking sort of like, this is what we're adding to the menu, this is what we're maybe going to revise from the menu, what comes to mind there? When you're thinking about like, okay, is this going to be sort of this anchor for this period of the year, or are we going to shift to something completely different? What are your thoughts as far as like updating the menu and the sort of testing of what's going to be a new focus in the menu, for instance?
I mean, seasonality really is the big thing. You know, Obviously, like I don't want to sell people asparagus in January when it's woody and chewy and gross. You know what I mean? And we do work so closely with some of the farmers here that, once we get good asparagus, or like right now I just picked up some really nice cherries and peaches. We've got tomatoes coming in soon. It's really thinking of when things are going to come into season, what we're going to change based on, what's in season now. And that's kind of the real, I guess, anchors is what's in season, how long are we going to have it for, and how heavy are things. We have this dish at Salio's. It's a French onion ravioli, which it's these cheese raviolis, and we do some shredded ribeye and heavy like demi-glace and butter kind of sauce for the pasta, and then some wilted spinach and caramelized onions. And we used to take it off the menu in the summer because it was just so heavy, and people would call and ask where it was. And so, we try to balance it with things that people really want us to have all the time, but also, keeping things fresh and seasonal and kind of the moment, where if it's summertime, we're not doing these really heavy braised dish. We try and keep it lighter because it's Baltimore, so it's miserably hot and humid.
Like the way you put that, miserably hot and humid, as
Yeah.
I'm over here schwitzing right now.
Yeah, I can't. I hate it. The summer kills me. I'm happy to sit inside in the air conditioning, or unless I'm in a body of water. If I'm in a pool or the ocean or something, that's different. But other than that, I'm a fall and winter girly for sure.
100%. We
Yeah.
talking about it recently about, sort of Game of Thrones and all of that stuff. And my personality was described as being of the North. And I was like, I'm born in
Yeah.
January. So of course.
Yep. Yep. For sure.
So I got one last real question before I hit you with some rapid fire questions. The last one I got is sort of the future of the local culinary industry. Like, I always kind of brag about the food here in Baltimore, that we just got really good food. And I think people are like starting to recognize that, maybe outside of
Mhm.
here. But I think that it's not been a secret to many folks that are here. What do you think is the future of sort of the restaurant industry locally? And I know it's been, some challenges over the last like several years, or what have you. And what excites you about the industry moving forward?
I mean, everything really. I think I love seeing, small businesses really continue to thrive and grow. Brian Lavin, who just opened Cosiera with Sam back in, what was that, January, I think. They're doing great. His food's amazing. I love that place, and just, seeing I don't want to say like the little guys kind of get their comeuppance, but I love seeing people get their flowers and the guys over at La Calle and Fells Point are killing it. And, Foraged up in Hamden. I mean, there's so many like really great small spots that are really doing things well and doing them right and getting some national recognition about it too. I mean, Le Comfort Van, a couple years ago, and what was that in like Savour's like top 10 restaurants in the nation or something like that. And I mean, even Luchadora's, Cochino Luchadora's getting written about, I think in Bon Appetit or something. Like, I love that Baltimore is becoming a real food city, after all these years. And I mean, if I'm being honest, I think that Cindy Wolf, really spearheading that in so many ways with the Foreman Wolf group and all of their commitment to quality, and just kind of, it's nice to see that there's finally like some real recognition coming Baltimore's way. So that I think is really exciting, and just kind of excited to see what else comes up, and there's been so many great places that have been popping up and around. I'm excited to see who's next,
No, it's delightful. I mean, seeing all of the different places kind of blow up or what have you, and just do good stuff. Like, I'm friends with Chris at Foraged or what have you. I have a drink on the menu currently. If you've not,
nice.
You should pop over. But yeah, it's it's great. And just seeing all these places kind of get their due. And when I see, as far as like the national exposure, when I see sort of collaborations with the little guys, if you will, like show up, whether it be, hey, we're now serving that Oriole Park for sake of argument, or we've popped up on a television show and it's like, yo, there's going to be more traffic going there. I need to make friends so I can get a seat. But also, but also it's good to like see those things and see when folks advance. And I think it's sort of in that vein of how folks talk about the arts here, I guess, where it's neighborhood community oriented, but then also you're able to kind of grow and expand. And I have seen sort of some of these other businesses here that are doing a thing, and they kind of say those different things that I just mentioned about being about the community and so on. And as they leave, because either something was not quite right, like we can tell here, I think pretty quickly if someone is about sort of the city and doing stuff in the city and doing things well, because as you talked about earlier, sort of that chef community, everyone kind of knows what everyone's doing. I've noticed this sort of theme when folks' businesses kind of go down, and I don't want anyone's business to go down, but the way that they behave on their way out, it's just like, yeah, Baltimore can kiss my ass as I leave. And it's just like, wow, this is a lot. And it's like, oh, we were right about you. You sucked from the beginning. And,
right.
And then, and I think the quality of folks' food, the quality of the people that are there, the brand overall, as I was touching on earlier, as far as like from the colors to how things are presented, it's all good, and that's the thing. And that's the thing that I see with your places. So like, big shout out to you. And thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you. That's a lovely compliment. I really appreciate that.
So now that we've gotten to the lovely compliments and all of the good stuff, it's now time to get to the weird part that is the rapid fire portion of the podcast. These could be hit or miss. Some people are like, man, I don't know why you asked me about that. And other people are like, oh, no, keep them coming. Keep them coming. That should be the whole podcast. So, as I, will preface with everyone, you don't want to overthink these questions. They're, it's kind of like I said what I said. That's just what it is at that moment. So here's the first one. What is the last thing you ate?
Chicken enchiladas for lunch this afternoon. I've been doing this thing where I just get a bunch of boneless chicken thighs and throw them in the crock pot and cook them down with some enchilada sauce. And then I make a big batch of enchiladas so that I just have something I can throw in the microwave randomly. So that's my last meal.
I like it. And I'm always curious when you start talking with chefs. It's like, so what'd you have recently? You're the first that didn't throw out, like, I got some leftovers.
I mean, technically it is leftovers, but it's purposeful leftovers.
So 3 for 3 then.
Yeah.
Um, in that same sort of territory, what would be your best tip for like home cooks? I mean, culinary arts is the thing. Not everyone gets one training. Some people just are touch and feel. Like I'm kind of a touch and feel guy, and when
Hmm.
it comes to figuring things out, it's intuition. But what would be that number one thing that you can take someone who's like maybe a five? They can do a few things to maybe a six or a seven. Like I don't know how to fry chicken right or cook rice. So those are
Ah,
gaps for me. But
get a rice cooker, number one.
I have one. That shows you how bad I am. But then at the
That is
same time,
bad.
I make a Japanese inspired smoked crab cake. So
Oh. I mean, I would say just read recipes, read through the entire thing, like read cookbooks, and learn about techniques and learn about different flavors that go together. And, you know, I don't cook with a lot of recipes if I'm cooking at home, which to be honest is rare, but um I've been trying to do it more frequently just so that I'm kind of a homebody and I don't want to order out all the time. But anyway, you know, I think if you get an idea of what things go together, that becomes really important in just being able to build your own dish out of what you kind of have on hand as opposed to needing to follow a recipe. Um, and you can also derive a lot of inspiration just from looking through books and reading about different techniques and things like that. And then, I mean, just a lot of trial and error, like just try things that you don't know how to do, read up on them and try it and learn from your mistakes, you know?
it's good. Thank you. That's
Yeah.
that's really good. I'll share what I had before getting on because I just finished eating a meal before we got on. I'd roasted some potatoes the other day, so leftovers for me as well. And I was like, yo, I kind of want some like potatoes and eggs for some reason. And I got in from the old day job, and I was like, we're making potatoes and eggs, and having those potatoes on hand, and like, 'cause I batch fried them off or roasted them actually, batch roasted like these cute potatoes, and I was like, oh, this was great. This is exactly what I wanted. And I was full versus what I probably would have did is, yo, do I have any chocolate and some potato chips? Can I blend those together? Oh,
Yeah.
the wild combination. Where are the pickles? Um, I got two more for you. What is your and I have a sense, but I'll ask. What is your proudest moment as chef, owner, restaurateur? What is your proudest moment?
Oh, I don't know. I think I think maybe the first, so I cook Thanksgiving dinner for my family at Sally O's every year now. And I think that first year of being able to be like, hey, I'll do this. You guys all come here and just having this like great Thanksgiving spread and all of my family and like some friends. And, now every year that I do it, I invite anybody from the restaurants who doesn't have a place to go, so it's this big kind of misfit toys Thanksgiving with my weird family. And I think that first year that I was able to do that kind of was something I was really proud of. Just to kind of say like, we'll always have a place now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's great. That's really nice. That's almost brought a tear to this black of mine. So so here's the last question. I want to preface it. So look at your social media, right? I see the word pancakes in there. Any significance before I ask you
Oh,
the actual real question?
so it's an old nickname that a good friend of mine gave me. I had his name's Andy or Andrew, and he was a bartender at this bar around the corner from my apartment, and I just had this huge crush on him. And I got real drunk one night, and I wrote my name and number down on a napkin. I decided I was going to give it to him, and I walk up to him at last call, and I kind of slide it across the bar, and I go, "Here's my number. Anytime you want some pancakes, give me a call. I'm fantastic." And then I just left. And so he has called me pancakes or cakes or some sort of version of that ever since. So that is is where that came from.
That is great. I love that. Yeah. Yep, that's a good one. I have to ask then. I think I'm glad I actually wrote down this actual question. How do you like your pancakes?
Oh, butter and I don't do any weird stuff in them. I just want really good regular buttermilk pancakes with butter and maple syrup. Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
it?
just straight up. I don't want whipped cream. I don't want a bunch of, fruit. Blueberry pancakes, sure, every now and again. But I don't want like cinnamon and apples and, strawberries and all that stuff. I just want straight up really good pancakes.
You're a purist. I love it.
I
Like
am. I
I'm
am.
the same
A
way.
lot of things. Pizza the same. Like as much as I love our pizzas at the Dive and like the pickle pizza I think is excellent. Generally, if I'm getting a pizza, I'm like pepperoni or like sausage and onions, just very like simple. My mom used to put everything but the kitchen sink on her pizzas. And I was just like, it's so much stuff. Like just eat a salad,
That's great. Like if I'm having pancakes, like you said, exactly the way occasion. And the thing is, I'm a creature of routine and a creature of habit. I always get the same thing. I'm like, it slaps every time. No notes. When I go to Ford,
Yep.
always sort of the like the crab cake, the mushroom crab cake, what have you, and of course the Rob Lee. And I was doing a focaccia a lot, and I was just like, I can't be eating this much bread, and because chefs love all of that. Chris comes up, like, hey man, I got like some like this giant pork rind. I was like, appreciate you, Chris. I was trying to watch those calories, but I'm going to eat this because it looks delicious. Yeah, great. That's great. And that is kind of it.
Awesome.
There's two things I want to do in these final moments. One, I want to thank you so much for spending some time with me today and sharing a bit of your story. This has been wonderful. And two, I want to invite and encourage you to share with the listeners where they can follow all of everything. Follow you, the restaurants, all of that good stuff, website, social media, all of that good stuff. The floor is yours.
Awesome. So you can find me on Instagram. I am at Jesse Pancakes, Jesse Pancakes, just like the breakfast food. And then the restaurants are at Sally O's MD, at Bunny's Baltimore, and at The Dive Baltimore, all on Instagram. You can find us on the Facebook as well, if anybody's still doing that. And then Sally O's is located in Highlandtown. Bunny's is in Fells Point, and The Dive is in Canton.
Oh yeah. I was waiting for a TikTok to pop up, like just like a sizzling TikTok of kitchen fun. But I didn't.
I have a TikTok account, but it's basically just so I can watch this one bird, Hamlet. I just have never gotten into the TikTok, although most of my staff at Bunny's, they're all younger. Well, not younger, but you know what I mean. Anyway, they love TikTok, and they keep telling me I need to set us up a Bunny's TikTok. So it may be in the future. They all send me different TikToks. They call it my friendship homework. So like once a week I go on and I go through all of my TikTok videos that they've sent me and comment on them. But if I let them add up too long, I've got like 40 videos I've got to watch. So I have to keep up on it on my days off. But yeah, TikTok in the future, but not quite yet.
Waiting for that bubble vision at Bunny's.
Yeah, bubble vision is a good one.
Yeah. And there you have it, folks. I want to again thank Jesse Sandlin from Bunny's, Sally O's, and The Dive for coming on and spending some time with me today. And I'm Rob Lee, saying that there's art, culture, and community in and around your neck of the woods. You've just got to look for it.